Meg Cabot, When Lightning Strikes, Chapter 12. When I woke up the next morning, I was kind of cranky, on account of Rob preferring not to have to go to jail rather than spend time in my company. But I perked up a little when I remembered I didn't have to slink around anymore looking for a payphone in order to call 1-800 Where Are You? Hell, I could just call them from my own house. So I got up, reconnected the phone, and dialed. Rosemary didn't answer, so I asked to speak with her. The lady who answered went, "Is this Jess?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And she said, "Hold on." Instead of connecting me with Rosemary, she connected me to Rosemary's butthead supervisor, Larry, who I'd spoken to the day before. He went, "Jessica, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for calling. Do you have some more addresses for us today? I'm afraid we were cut off yesterday." "Yes, we were, Larry," I said, "thanks to your phoning into the feds. Now connect me with Rosemary or I'm hanging up." Larry sounded kind of taken back. "Well now, Jess," he said, "we didn't mean to upset you. Only to have you understand that when we get in calls like yours, we're obligated to investigate." "Larry," I said, "I understand perfectly. Now put Rosemary on the phone." Larry made all these indignant noises, but eventually he transferred me to Rosemary. She sounded really upset. "Oh, Jess," she said, "I'm so sorry, honey. I wish I could have said something, warned you somehow, but, they traced the calls." "That's okay, Rosemary," I said. "No harm done. I mean, what girl doesn't want a news crew from Dateline in her front yard?" Rosemary said, "Well, at least you can joke about it. I don't know if I could." "Water under the bridge," I said. At the time, I really meant it, too. "So look, here's the two kids from yesterday. I have two more if you're ready." Rosemary was ready. She took down the information I gave her. "God bless you, sweetheart," and hung up. Then I hung up, too, and started to get ready for school. Of course, that was easier said than done. Outside our house was a zoo again. There were more vans than ever before, some with these giant satellite dishes on top of them. There were reporters standing in front of them, and when I turned on the TV, it was sort of surreal because on almost every channel you could see my house with someone standing there in front of it going, "I'm here in front of this quaint Indiana home, a home that has been declared a historic landmark by the county, but which has reached international fame by being home to heroine Jessica Mastroianni, whose extraordinary psychic powers have led to the recovery of half a dozen missing children." The cops were there too. By the time I got downstairs, my mom was already bringing them seconds of coffee and biscotti. They were gulping them down almost as fast as she could bring them out, and of course the moment I put the phone down, it started ringing. When my dad picked it up, someone asked to speak to me, but wouldn't give his name. He disconnected it again. It was, in other words, a mess. None of us realized how bad a mess, however, until Douglas wandered into the kitchen, looking a little wide-eyed. "They're after me," he said. I nearly choked on my cornflakes, because the only time Douglas ever starts talking about them is when he's having an episode. My dad knew something was wrong, too. He put down his coffee and stared at Douglas, worried. Only my mom was oblivious. She was loading more biscotti onto a plate. She said, "Don't be ridiculous, Dougie. They're after Jessica, not you." "No," Douglas said, as he shook his head. "It's me they want. You see those dishes? Those satellite dishes on top of their vans? They're scanning my thought waves. They're using those satellite dishes to scan my thought waves." I dropped my spoon. My dad went gently, "Doug, did you take your medication yesterday?" "Don't you see?" Douglas, as quick as a flash, yanked the biscotti out of my mom. Doug, as quick as a flash, yanked the biscotti out of my mom's hands and flung the plate to the floor. "Are you all blind? It's me they want. It's me." My dad jumped up and put his arm around Doug. I pushed away my cereal bowl and said, "I better go. Maybe if I go, they'll follow me." "Go," my dad said. I went. I got up, grabbed my flute and my backpack, and headed for the door. They followed me, or should I say, they followed Ruth, who'd managed to convince the cops to let her out of the driveway and into mine. I jumped into the front seat, and we took off. If I hadn't been so worried about Douglas, I would have enjoyed watching all the reporters trying to scramble into their vans and follow us, but I was concerned. Douglas had been doing so well. What had happened? "Well," Ruth said, "you have to admit, it's a lot to take." "What is?" Ruth reached up to adjust her rearview mirror. She said, staring pointedly into it. "That." I looked behind us. We had a police escort, a bunch of the motorcycle cops rolling along beside us in an attempt to keep the hordes of news vans from bearing down on us too hard. But there were a lot more news vans than I would have thought, and they were all coming right at us. It wasn't going to be very funny when we tried to get out of the car. Maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they won't let them onto school property, I said hopefully. Yeah, right. Feeney's going to be standing there with the big welcome banner. Are you kidding? I said, well, maybe if I just talk to them. Which was how, just before the start of first period, I found myself standing on the school steps, fielding questions from these news reporters that I'd been watching on TV my whole life. No, I said in reply to one question. It didn't hurt, really. It just felt sort of tingly. Yes, I said to someone else. I do think the government should be doing more to find these children. No, I replied to another question. I don't know where Elvis is. Mr. Feeney, just as Ruth had predicted, was there all right. He was there with a little flock of reporters all his own. He and Mr. Goodhart stood on either side of me as I answered the reporter's question. Mr. Goodhart looked uncomfortable, and Mr. Feeney, you can tell, was having the time of his life. He kept on saying anyone who would listen how Ernest Pyle High School had won the state basketball championship in 1977, like anyone cared. And then, in the middle of this lame little impromptu press conference, something happened. Something happened that changed everything, even more than Douglas's episode had. Miss Bastarani, someone in the middle of the horde of reporters cried, did you feel any guilt whatsoever over the fact that Sean Patrick O'Hana claims that when his mother kidnapped him 5 years ago, it was in order to protect him from his abusive father? I blinked. It was another beautiful spring day with the temperature already climbing into the 70s, but suddenly I felt cold. What? I said, scanning the crowd, trying to figure out who was talking. And that you revealing Sean's whereabouts to the authorities, the voice went on, has not only endangered his life but put his mother's freedom in jeopardy? And then, instead of there being a sea of faces in front of me, there was only one face. I couldn't even tell if I was really seeing it or if it was just my mind's eye, but there it was, Sean's face, as I'd seen it that day in front of the little brick house in Pauley. A small face, white as paper, freckles on it standing out like hives. His fingers clinging to me, had shaken like leaves. Don't you tell anyone, he hissed at me. Don't you ever tell anyone you saw me. Understand? He had begged me not to tell. He had clung to me and begged me not to tell. And I had told anyways, because I had honestly thought he was being held against his will by people for whom he was deathly afraid of. He had certainly acted as if he were afraid. And that was because he had been afraid of me. I had truly thought I was doing the right thing, but I hadn't been doing the right thing. I hadn't done the right thing at all. The reporters were still yelling questions at me. I heard them, but it was as if they were yelling at me from very far away. Jessica, Mr. Goodhart was looking down at me. Are you all right? I am not Sean Patrick O'Hanahan. That's what Sean had said to me that day outside of his house. So you can just go away, do you hear? You can just go away. And don't ever come back. Okay. Mr. Goodhart put his arm around me and started steering me back into the school. That's enough for one day. What? I said. Who said that? Who said that about Sean? But unfortunately, as soon as they saw I was leaving, all the reporters started screaming questions at once, and I couldn't figure out who had asked me about Sean Patrick O'Hanahan. Is it true? I asked Mr. Goodhart as he hustled me back inside the school. Is what true? Is it true what the reporter said? My lips felt funny, like I'd been to the dentist and gotten Novocaine. About Sean Patrick O'Hanahan not having been kidnapped at all? I don't know, Jessica. Could his mom really go to jail? I don't know, Jessica, but if it is, it isn't your fault. Why isn't it my fault? He was walking me to my homeroom. For once I was late and nobody gave a damn. How do you know it's not my fault? No court in the land, Mr. Goodhart said, is going to award custody of a child to an abusive parent. The mother's probably just brainwashed the kid into thinking his father's abused him. But how do you know that? I replied. How can anyone know? How am I supposed to know if what I'm doing revealing these kids' locations to the authority is really in the best interest of the kids? I mean, maybe some of them don't want to be found. How am I supposed to know the difference? You can't know, Mr. Goodhart said. We've reached my classroom by then. Jess, you can't know. You just have to assume that if someone's loved them enough to report them missing, that person deserves to know where they are, don't you think? No, that was the problem. I hadn't thought. I hadn't thought about anything at all. Once I'd figured out that my dream was true, that Sean Patrick O'Hanahan was really alive and well and living in that little brick house in Pauley, I had acted without the slightest bit of further consideration. And now, because of it, a little kid was in more trouble than ever. Oh, yeah, I'd been touched by the finger of God, all right. The question was, which finger?